And welcome to our show. We were not here yesterday, and the simple reason is because our own Dodisai studio was up early to bring you details of the news of the elections in Ondo State, and of course they did that, and they'll continue doing that today, but that will be right after the show. So we are here to deal. But you see, we're not dealing differently because our focal point today is on the political process and the elections in Nigeria. While I was preparing for the show, I discovered that there are so many definitions of politics, And out of all these definitions, 3 stood out to me. They jumped at me, actually, and I'll read them to you. One is from Wikipedia, and it says, politics is a set of activities that are associated with making decisions in groups or other forms of power relations between individuals, such as distribution of resources and status. Then the Webster says, politics is the act or science of government. That is quite simple. Then the final one is from the Collins English Dictionary, and it says, politics is the action or activities concerned with acquiring power or using power in a country. And that's what politics is all about. But do you know there's politics everywhere? I mean, even in the home, where you work, in an association. And why is that? Because man is said to be a political animal. Our show today is no different, as we have experts who will throw more light on the topic of the day. And most importantly, we have you. Thank you for always keeping a date with us. Soon our feedback lines will be on the screen. Please let us know what your thoughts are on this very important topic. It is Weekend Deal, coming to you live from the network service of the NTA. My name is Patience Eloy Abba. I am always delighted each time you join us on the show. If you're just joining us, it is Weekend Deal, coming to you live from the network service of the NTA. Well, it's a good time to join because the flight is just about to take off. Our focal point on this show is on the political and electoral process in Nigeria. To set the tone for our show today, we'll take a backgrounder as put together by Francis Ogbe.
Nigeria is a country abundantly blessed and endowed with rich human and natural resources. The ideal goal of politics is development, but if political power is used solely for primitive accumulation of wealth, as is the current practice in developing societies such as Nigeria, then the ideal purpose of politics is lost.
Most people go into politics because of service to humanity, while some, maybe in some cases, go into politics because of personal gains and personal reasons.
Before now, people go into politics for service, but presently it is worrisome. In the past, we observed that those that were at the forefront of politics in Nigeria in particular, do not make gains, do not come out with beautiful cars, do not come out with mansions here and there. But unfortunately today, many of us go into politics because we want to acquire several houses, motor cars.
The conflict arising from godfatherism has become one of the greatest problems facing the Nigerian political system. The holder of the political position becomes a stooge to his godfather because he that pays the piper dictates the tune.
There's two sides to it. There are some people that have godfathers that don't interfere in what they're doing. There are some people that have godfathers that are demanding, that control virtually all what they do. To me, I didn't say godfatherism is not good in politics. If you have a godfather that will mentor you to do good and to deliver good to the people, godfatherism is good. But if you have a godfather that will mislead you into doing bad and commanding you and maybe encouraging you to take from the people or to steal government funds or people's funds, I think it's a bad thing.
If I am sponsored to be a local government chairman, who sponsored me? What was their mission? What am I supposed to do? It will be difficult for me to forget that somebody helped me to climb up to this position. Yet, he did that because he wanted me to perform to his satisfaction and the satisfaction of the generality of the people. But in a situation where he decides now that whatever is to benefit the general public should be centered only to him, that is problem. And definitely, the act of godfatherism will begin to crack, will begin to suffer, and the society will be the ones to be affected.
On 31st May 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Not Too Young to Run bill into law, which reduces the age qualification for running for president from 40 years to 35 years, and for governorship position from 35 years to 30 years. But how prepared are the youth in politics? Have they lived up to expectation?
The only things at times the youths are lacking is maybe the proper guidance for them to do what is good and what is necessary. Because you have to give the youths opportunities. If there are no opportunities, how would they learn? How would they be able to manage the affairs of the country?
In view of the levity with which many public officers treat oath of office, Nigerians say the exercise has lost its efficacy in the promotion of good governance. Consequently, people are advocating that public officers should take oath of office by local deities instead of the Quran or Bible.
To me, as a Muslim that have faith in Islam, I think you can use a local god to swear. It's better you continue to take oath using the God that you know, the God of the Bible and the God of the Quran.
The invisible God that we serve does not operate like the small gods, the different deities we have. So definitely people will subscribe today that we take oath in our different deities because they strike immediately. But the invisible God, the Almighty, the Alpha, the Omega God that we have, does not operate in that manner. So I want to believe that because we have failed the system, we have failed ourselves by mere holding the Bible, holding the Quran, and swear. And when we get to the office, it's a different ball game.
Political campaigns are synonymous with political and electoral violence. Therefore, there is need for a change of the current do-or-die politics in the country for democracy to thrive so that the citizens can reap the benefits of democracy.
I'll put this blame on we the politicians because we encourage that. We are the ones that maybe promote thuggery and we make the politics in such a way that if it's not me, it's never, nobody. If I'm not going to win, it's rather it's the best I destroy it. Today, the people we use as our political thugs, if all the politicians will stop using them, maybe give them a business to go and do, take them back to school, train them, give them jobs to do, tomorrow you won't see anybody leading any protest or leading any political violence because he's occupied, he's busy somewhere.
Our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on politics and political offices in Nigeria. How far? So far.
Thank you so much, Francis. So many problems bedeviling our political system, from godfatherism to vote buying to so many other issues. But for the issue of godfatherism, even our biological fathers, you birth a child, You train a child to an extent and you let the child go. No father holds on to the child forever. So I think that should also be seen in our political godfatherism. Okay, moving on quickly. Why do people go into politics? And I'll give you some scenario. Okay, so you've worked for government for some years, you've achieved so much, and you decide that I want to resign, or when I retire, I want to go into politics to serve my people in a larger scale. Or as an entrepreneur, after having achieved so much, you want a broader scale to touch the lives of your people, and then you decide to go into politics. Or another scenario is a young man or woman who is passionate about serving his or her people. And so the person is interested in politics and begins to climb the rope and becomes a career politician. From stage to stage, the person climbs and goes into politics. And which other scenario can I give you? Or somebody who is called by his people. My people have called me to come and serve. But the question is are these the only reason why people go into politics? What are the other reasons? This report put together by NTA Lagos will tell us more reasons.
Politics is the action or activity concerned with achieving and using power in a country or society. Its activities are aimed at improving someone's status or increasing power within an organization, and also bring people together to form a government. In most cases, political ideology helps to explain how society should work and offer some political and cultural blueprint for a certain social order. But is this the case with Nigerian politics?
To me, we are bringing in people who are not supposed to be the policymakers. We vote not out of our conscience, but out of the peanuts they give us. Majority of Nigerians do that. They don't think about what will influence their lives and the lives of their own children.
I just feel that Nigerians don't have any choice, because they feel that even if we vote or we don't vote, our vote don't count. I feel our vote don't count because they already know who is going to win and who is not going to win. So they just feel it as an opportunity for them to get whatever they want from the government, because when they bring the rice, the beans and everything, Nigerians are hungry. They are hungry, and they know that these rice and beans will not be able to see it if they win the election. So this is the right opportunity for us to get this rice and beans.
Most of the citizens and politicians jettison ideology and encourage money politics.
Politics these days have begun to look like business for most human beings in Nigeria. But the motives for political entourage could be many. Some for purpose of service. If you remember the time of our early leaders, Awolowo's, Nnamdi Azikiwe and co, and they were there for the purpose of liberating the people, making Nigeria work. But you can categorize reasons why people go into politics. One for service, one for people look at it this as a means of employment, to earn a living, and some they do it like a hobby.
It was also discovered that most people with money can influence politicians and political decisions in ways that are problematic for democracy.
What they call vote buying, and that's what's killing we youths. It's still happening. Even in the last election, I witnessed some in my area, but I won't go further. But vote buying is what is killing our youths, we youths.
Therefore, using money and other inducements to influence political parties and candidates so that they will be answerable to the sponsors should be discouraged through effective regulation and implementation to control adverse effects of the role of money in politics.
Okay. Why people go into politics, that young respondent said because they'll give rice and beans. And the question I would ask is, how long would the rice and beans last? How long will that money last? And there's life after that. Okay, we are going to be going all the way to NTA. Let's see the situation report. What happened before the elections? What happened during the elections? And what the expectations are? Let's see this.
Ondo State, popularly known as the Sunshine State, is rich in diverse agricultural and other natural resources such as cocoa, rubber plantation, bitumen deposit, granite, forestry, vast coastal line, among others. Citizens of the 44-year-old state went to the polls to elect a new governor on Saturday, October 10, 2020, who will oversee the affairs of the state for the next 4 years. In the elections, 17 registered political parties participated and canvassed for the votes of the electorate through campaigns and rallies held at different locations across the state. In the course of these activities, there were reports of alleged pockets of violence, which were also condemned by stakeholders and such put under control by the security agencies.
It was a mere disturbances from some miscreants. And the moment they discovered that the police was on ground, what they did was to disperse themselves in several ways.
The Electoral Empire in Nigeria, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, engaged stakeholders in order to ensure a hitch-free polls in the Sunshine State.
Polling unit level results will be uploaded in real time as polling units close for public view, even before we finally collect and make a declaration of winner.
Any person that violates any components of the criminal law before, during, and after the election shall be apprehended and be charged under the appropriate section of the law. We don't want any crisis in this state.
The Nigeria Police Force deployed a Deputy Inspector General, Assistant Inspector General, 11 commissioners to coordinate the state security before, during, and after the elections, with over 30,000 personnel.
The moment you abandon it and anything happens there, we know who to call because your name is attached to the polling unit.
The election debate group invited all flag bearers of the various political parties to a face the voter debate where the candidates presented their manifestos to the public. One of the crucial events that preceded the election was the signing of the peace accord by political parties' candidates in the programs organized by the National Committee on Peace, where politicians were committed to maintaining a peaceful disposition during and after the elections.
Destruction and violence been stamped with, and nothing could be achieved without peace.
Citizens of the state expressed their expectations after the governorship polls.
The kind of man that I want to be our next governor should be a God-fearing person.
Who is accessible, who will not come and lord over us, someone who will work for the people.
Find job for the youth, but providing good things for the citizens.
Somebody that will alleviate the sufferings of the people.
It is hoped that at the end of the whole process, Ondo State will have a good story to tell, while both losers and winners will display a spirit of sportsmanship.
Very beautiful expectations there. It's a prayer that all their dreams come true. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I said we had very special guests in the house that will throw more light on the conversation we are having today. Earlier in the week, we had a chat with Mr. Festus Okoye, who is the national chairman and the national commissioner and the chairman information and voters education of INEC. He couldn't come to the studio, but he graciously stopped by during the week and we had a chat with him. Take a look. If you're just joining us, it is Weekend Deal, and our first guest is in the house. He is Mr. Festus Okoye. He is a national commissioner and the chairman, Information and Voters Education Committee of the INEC. Sir, you're welcome to the Weekend Deal Studios.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and I'm going to start with a very obvious question, and that is the question everybody's asking. INEC has done so well in their Edo elections, and we asked, the question is, how are you planning to build on that success?
We have learned valuable lessons from the conduct of the Edo governorship election. And I think that the most obvious thing we harvested from that particular election is the fact that Nigerians are desirous of having free, fair, and transparent election. And based on that, we have decided that some of the obvious challenges we had with the Edo governorship election, that we are going to address them. One, we are going to deepen the use of technology in the electoral process. Okay. Secondly, we had smart card reader glitches in a few of the polling units. And we have decided to train and deploy additional registration area technical assistance for the Ondo governorship election, so that wherever we have a few challenges with the smart card readers, intervention will come within a period of 5 minutes. Okay. So we have done that. The standard that we set in Edo, we don't lower the standard. Exactly. So there's a bar already, okay. And we intend to either maintain the bar or surpass what we achieved with the Edo governorship election. That's beautiful. I just pray that you truly surpass that bar. But the issue of card readers, yes, it's always been tricky. Can we have a situation where we don't even have issues with the card reader? Like you said, if there's any issue, help will come in 5 minutes. Can we have a situation where the card readers don't give problem? Because card readers have continuously become a point of reference when we talk about our national elections or any elections at all. You know, the card reader is an electronic gadget. Okay. With electronic gadgets, you can never be 100% sure of their performance until you put them on. Now, as smart card readers take their direction and their dates and timing from the cloud, so they don't come on until it is time to open the polls at exactly 8:30. Then the smart card readers will come on. So it's not possible to preload smart card readers, and it's not possible to put on the smart card readers until that appointed time. Secondly, there are issues that may lead to smart card reader glitches. Some of the permanent voters cards are up to 10 years. Okay. And with that type of system or that type of solution, after a period of time, they begin to wear off. Okay. So one of the things that the Commission has decided to do is to do voter revalidation after some time. So we are going to do voter revalidation. Okay. Secondly, the permanent voters cards contain transmitters. So sometimes people put these permanent voters cards in their pockets and they sit on them, and then they damage the transmitters. So when the transmitter is damaged, the smart card reader finds it very difficult to read. Some of our people use the permanent voters cards for banking transactions and all sorts of transactions, and sometimes these things wear off. So when you put them, the smart card reader will verify that it is genuine. But when it comes to authenticating the biometrics of the holder, there are challenges. That was exactly why we wanted to introduce the Z-Pad as a secondary authentication solution to the smart card reader, but it had some challenges, and we decided to withdraw it in order to make it more robust. So we are working towards that, and I believe that when we finish our voter revalidation, some of these challenges we have with the smart card reader and with the permanent voters cards will not be there. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to jump over the election and go a way back. Why our elections, most elections in Nigeria, filled with so much violence? Why do we have plenty of violence? Well, I think that question should be directed at the political parties. It should be directed at the candidates and also to their supporters. For the Commission, election is an ordinary civic responsibility. In a true and genuine election, the security agencies are supposed to mind their business. The voters just go to the polling units, exercise their democratic franchise, and walk away. But because in Nigeria, election is high stake, because people are desperate for power, they are ready to do anything and employ any means in order to get to power. And when you become desperate about power, you are capable of doing anything. And that is why, for instance, for the Ondo governorship election, the Nigerian police are going to deploy over 33,000 personnel for this particular election. We are in consultation
with the Nigerian Navy for them to deploy some of their platforms and some of their gunboats to protect our personnel and materials.
So I was going to go there, sir. Our
Yes.
elections are like war zones. I
Yes.
mean, you're deploying all this number of military personnel to a state.
Yes.
And it's beginning to look like we are going to war, and that's why they say our elections are very militarized. A lot of military people going there like it's a war.
No, there's no doubt about it. It's low intensity warfare because there's a high level of desperation among the political elite in this country, and as you know, some of them go out of their way, buy drugs for some of their supporters, buy guns for them, and buy all sorts of weapons for them. And even during their campaigns and their rallies, you see young men and women brandishing all sorts of weapons, and you see in some places people being maimed, houses being burnt, and all sorts of wholesome practices being perpetrated. So I think that one of the things we need to do as a people and as a nation is to begin to beam the searchlight on the political class and the political elite, because the conduct, the management, and the delivery of a free, fair, credible, and peaceful election is a multi-stakeholder venture. No single agency, no single entity can go it alone. So if the Electoral Management Body gets these processes right, and the Nigerian Police Force, being the lead security agency in election security, becomes professional and ethical, without the political elite keying into the electoral process and agreeing to play by the rules of the game, there will still be a gap. So I think that the time has come when we must begin to name and shame politicians and political parties that sponsor violence in election and turn violence as an enterprise.
And when there is violence, can the Commission say this election is null and void? We are not taking this election. We are cancelling this election because there were pockets of violence here and there. Maybe that could scare the politicians from engaging in violence. What do you think, sir?
Well, I will approach it this way.
Okay.
For instance, let me use the Edo as an example. Ondo State. Okay. In Ondo State, we have 3,009 polling units, and we have 203 electoral wards. Now, each polling unit is sovereign. It stands on its own.
Okay.
Each electoral ward stands on its own, and each local government stands on its own. So, if there's violence in a particular polling unit, the presiding officer, who is the managing director of that particular polling unit, has the right not to proceed with that particular election on grounds of violence. If, for instance, we want to deploy a smart card reader for a particular polling unit, and there's resistance to the deployment of smart card reader, we give that particular polling unit 0 vote. The implication is that every person in that particular polling unit has voted, and they got 0 vote. All the political parties got 0 vote. So the Commission, under Section 26 of the Electoral Act, under Section 26 of the Electoral Act, the Commission has the right to postpone an election in a particular polling unit or in a particular registration area or electoral ward if there is violence.
Postpone, not cancel.
We can cancel.
Okay.
We can cancel an election in a particular polling unit, and we can postpone election in a particular polling unit or in a particular electoral ward. But the issue here is that the fact that there has been violence in a particular electoral ward will not lead to the cancellation of election in another electoral ward where there has been no violence. But if, for instance, there has been violence in 5 local governments, for instance, and we have cancelled election in those 5 local governments, if the total number of registered voters in those places where we cancelled the election will affect the outcome of the election. In other words, if you quantify the number of registered voters and then you add those number to the person who is trailing behind, and if the person will overtake the person who is leading, then we are not going to declare the result of the election. We will regard that election as inconclusive until we have conducted the election in those areas.
That's where I was going. I was going to say, what makes an election inconclusive?
Yes.
Just can you tell Nigerians who are watching, because telling inconclusive is becoming like, what exactly makes an election inconclusive?
there are certain situations that can make election inconclusive.
Okay.
One, those who designed the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria embedded the issue of inconclusive election within the constitutional framework.
Okay.
One, if you look at the law, for a governor to be declared as having been elected and returned, the candidate must score majority of lawful votes cast in the election and must also score 25% of the votes cast in 2/3 of all the local government areas.
Okay.
If no candidate secures this majority of lawful votes and the geographical spread, a return cannot be made.
Even when one person's vote is more than the other person's vote?
The person who is leading
yes.
must secure majority of lawful votes and also secure 25% of the votes in 2/3 of all the local government areas of the state. So if you score majority of lawful votes as a candidate without securing the requisite spread,
yes.
you have not won the election. And if you secure the requisite geographical spread without scoring the majority of lawful votes, you have not won the election. In that instance,
yes.
the law and the Constitution says that we should not declare a winner. But what we should do is that within 21 days of the declaration of that particular election as inconclusive, that we should conduct another election. And only 2 political parties and only 2 candidates will participate in that election, even if there are 17.
Okay.
The candidate that scored the majority of lawful votes in the election and one of the remaining candidates that secured the highest number that had the highest spread.
Geographical spread.
The geographical spread. So the person who came second may not be the one who secured.
Oh, that's technical. That's technical. So not the second person. Actually, it could be another candidate who has a geographical spread.
Exactly.
That is.
So these are the only 2 candidates that are going to contest in the second election.
Wow.
So that is one aspect of inconclusive election.
Okay.
The second aspect is what I have described. If, for instance, election has taken place, there has been cancellation in certain areas on account of violence. When you quantify the number of registered voters in all those places that were cancelled, if it will make a difference in terms of who may likely be declared the winner of the election, then we regard it as inconclusive. And then we conduct election in those areas and then add to it before we declare the winner of the election.
Interesting.
Yes.
Now, you are the chairman committee on information and voter education.
Yes.
Talking about vote buying, how are you handling it? How are you addressing the serious menace, I'd like to call it that?
You know, in every transaction relating to vote buying, there's a willing buyer and there's a willing seller.
Okay.
The seller is not completely innocent, because I have been at polling units where the vote buyers arrived and the people with their permanent voters cards abandoned voting and went after the vote buyers. After they finished their transaction, they now came back to come and vote. So there's a willing buyer and a willing seller. But what we are saying as an electoral management body is that nobody is permitted to exploit the vulnerabilities of our people, to exploit the poverty of our people in order to skew the electoral process to his or her favor. So based on that, we incorporated the EFCC and the ICPC into our interagency consultative committee on election security. And what they normally do, and what they will continue to do, is that on election day, plain clothes security officers are moved to the different polling units to be patrolling the polling units to make sure that nobody violates the sanctity of the vote. Secondly, we have recalibrated the polling units to make it impossible for people to expose their votes after voting.
Okay.
And we have said that nobody is permitted to take a smartphone or a gadget that is capable of taking pictures into the voting compartment on election day.
Okay.
But, you know, I believe that some of these things are really theoretical, that at the end of the day, better enlightenment robust voter education, and good governance will lower the bar in relation to this whole issue about
we have so much to talk about, but the time we are running short of time. But let me ask this question: when will you employ technology to the extent where Nigerians in diaspora can vote? You can vote from anywhere. When are we going to get there?
We will soon get there. With the governorship election, we don't do governorship election, and with the Nasarawa Central State Constituency election that we organized, all the political parties filed the list of their candidates and particulars electronically. The civil society groups and organizations apply for accreditation electronically. The media also apply for accreditation electronically. So there was no human interface in some of these things. And we have also uploaded and we continue to upload polling unit results into a central portal for public viewing. So we are gradually and irrevocably committed to the deepening of the use of technology in the electoral process. And we have promised the Nigerian people that with the 2021 Anambra governorship election, that we are going to introduce and use electronic voting machines for that election. The introduction of technology is a gradual and graduated process. When we introduce electronic voting machines successfully, then we cannot begin to talk about internet voting and people using their smartphones and staying wherever they are to vote. So, but we are committed to the introduction of technology in the electoral process.
So, in closing, how independent is INEC? How independent is INEC?
Well, as far as I am concerned, independence is a function of the law. It's also a function of the mind. You can have all the independence in the world, theoretically or constitutionally and statutorily, and yet you are not independent within. As far as I'm concerned, most of us in the commission, we were appointed with swore to an oath of office to serve this particular country and also to conduct free, fair, and transparent election, and that's what we are going to do, and that's what we are doing. And we are not under pressure from anybody, and we don't accept dictation from anybody.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mr. Festus Okoye, for coming into our studio. And of course, you're promising us, and we are hoping that you will do even better than what you did in Edo State.
We are working towards that.
Okay. Yes. So this is all we can take with our chat with Mr. Festus Okoye. We'll go on a short break and the program will continue. Welcome back to our live studio. I want to say thank you to Mr. Festus Okoye for enlightening us on the processes and all that we need to know. We'll take this very special report on election violence and militarization, and then when you come back, I will introduce someone to you.
Since the independence era, elections in Nigeria have been characterized by high scale of electoral malpractices, money politics, electoral violence, and the use of ethno-religious divide in order to influence the voting patterns of the electorates. One of the strategies employed by politicians during electioneering period is electoral violence.
Violence in elections are usually tied to two characters. One, it is either those that are seeking power wants to make it a do-or-die affair, or those that have been saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that the process is free, fair, and credible, makes the slightest attempt of interference.
In many ways, election in Nigeria is akin to war. Desperate and power-drunk politicians during electioneering period sponsor unemployed youth and stack illiterates to carry out assault on their perceived political opponents with a view to manipulating election results to their advantage.
Anyone that wants to serve must not force himself. Anyone that wants to serve must not compel people to make him serve them. Now, if you compel people to make you serve them, you have an agenda that is personal and that is selfish.
While some people have argued that electoral violence is traceable to the failure of the elite to provide proper leadership for the people, others accuse the elite as responsible for fanning the embers of hatred, division, and violence before, during, and after elections.
Unfortunately, young people make themselves tools unavailable for these people to use. How? They are induced monetarily. They make them offers that sometimes they can't resist. They make them offers because they know their status. If young people now begin to say, I am worth more than being used as a thug. I have the same value like your son that should not be seen outside carrying ballot bus. When young people change their mentality to that angle and begin to reason in that direction, these agents that are do or die politicians will begin to understand the fact that already made tools have not changed.
Most of our elections are always characterized with presence of heavy security forces who are drafted to lock down the states shortly before, during and immediately after the elections. Consequently, some are of the opinion that elections in Nigeria are overtly militarized.
The militarization of election is boiled to one thing. What is it boiled to? The build-up to the election. When the build-up sends a signal of violence, when the build-up sends a signal of placing the state on red alert, statustically, no president will sit and allow a country to be destroyed under his watch. So you are duty-bound to send military personnel to ensure that there is maintenance of law and order. As much as we do not want militarization of our electoral venues and election days, we equally have a duty, political parties, aspirants, and citizens. Now, when the military and the government sees that we are civil enough, they see that we are orderly enough, and they see that we are matured enough to conduct ourselves without their presence, they will advise themselves to stay away from where we are because we are matured people.
Elections are fundamental to democracy, and it is often said that whereas it is possible to have elections without democracy, it is virtually impossible to have democracy without elections. So, how do we break the cycle of electoral violence?
If every component that summarizes an election itself, political parties and their candidates, INEC, the umpire, and the institutions that provide security, if every component play their role to the level of service to God and to humanity and not selfish services, then there will be no violence, no interference, and I assure you, my brother, we will begin to witness election that will be free, fair, and violence-free in this country.
Looking forward to when elections in Nigeria will be devoid of thuggery, ballot snatching, and violence.
Okay, looking forward to when Nigerian elections will be devoid of all manner of violence so that our security personnel will be deployed to other uses without making our elections seem like a war zone. I told you before the report that I will introduce someone to you. We have our second guest and our first live guest. Yes, he is architect Stanley Ibuba. He is a certified project manager. He is a two-time chairman of Akwanga local government in Nasarawa State. And he is the senior special assistant to the governor on development control, and he was the same thing to the other governor. Like we were discussing before the show, he has done everything twice, and I told him he's going to come back to this studio for the second time. Since we are doing everything twice, sir, you're welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And happy weekend, Nigerians.
Yes. So let me start with the Edo election. What is your assessment of the Edo elections?
Well, my assessment is that it was credible, and I think everybody who voted their conscience, and I do not. There was no any report that there was any malpractice or violence, and I think it's because all the stakeholders involved played their role, right from the presidency, INEC, the voters, and the parties. And I think that is why after the election you don't hear much. We didn't hear any much noise or bickering after the election. We don't know what's going to happen later, but I think after the elections, almost there was just some form of silence compared to other places where after elections you start seeing that's even when the real violence will even start.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So what can you compare? I know the Edo elections are still collating. Can you compare it to the Ondo elections?
Yeah, that of Ondo as well, except of course for one or two reports, isolated reports I would say in particular areas, and you know there are peculiarities. So it does not mean maybe because in a particular polling unit there was some violence, then we can now use that to judge the entire elections. Okay. Yeah. So I think at a certain level it was okay.
Okay. As a politician, I'll ask you this. Yeah. Nigerian politics seems to be devoid of ideology. Why is it so here? And we know that ideology is what, affects change in our society. And our politics is devoid of it. Why is it so?
Yeah, ideologies, since we are still a growing democracy, I see ideology in Nigerian politics more with the leaders than with the political parties themselves. Okay. And that's why you find that politicians find it very convenient to jump from one party to the other, because if it's about ideology, everybody will remain where he is, whether win or lose. You remain just like some of us that are fans of football clubs. Whether your club wins or loses, you are
just there.
You are just still with
you are Arsenal. You are Arsenal.
Yeah, mind you, you are Man U. You don't change. Okay. So up till now, probably sometimes most parties just draft constitution for the purpose of registration with INEC, and most members of the party are not oriented towards what it is. So somebody will join a party because his elder brother is there, his uncle is there, stuff like that. Not really because he or she has a particular ideology. Maybe it's a conservative or a progressive and things like that. So I believe with time we will get there. But for now, the ideology lies most with the leaders. And that's why for those who even follow some parties, is because they see a leader there that has some ideology, like President Muhammad Buhari, for instance. Let me give an example. Most people you find in the party are probably because of him. They believed in what he could do. Maybe they may not be in that party if he was not there. Okay. So the ideology for now with the leaders,
not enshrined in the political
parties yet. Okay. And show somehow.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're following our show from the beginning, a lot of people have said that politicians are desperate. Why are they desperate for power? Why is it a do or die affair in Nigeria?
I think it's a precedence. Probably sometimes somebody will come into politics, probably he has made it elsewhere before, and then somebody sees him with a lot of things and he believes that he too is going there to get the same thing. So you find that this desperation for accumulation of wealth, corruption and things like that, what brings the desperation, not really going there to effect change. But actually, I wouldn't say every politician is like that, because as many as the politicians are, as diverse as they are, so also are their intentions. There are some that actually see something wrong with the society and want to go into change, and their drive, sometimes you may see it as desperation, but it's their drive to see that they go in there to effect a change. But of course, there are certain categories, of course, who are going there not for good reasons. So for me, it's not a blanket assessment of all of them. Yeah, it's as diverse as the number of politicians are.
Okay. So Nigerians are looking at our politicians, a lot of them who took oath of office to say they would do this, using the Bible and the Quran to say they would do this and do that. They get into office and they don't do it. And people are now saying maybe if they swear by our local deities, they might keep to what their promises were before they got into office. What is your take on that?
Yeah, well, my take is that I don't actually subscribe to that, because for you to swear by something, it has to be something you believe in. So if you're a Muslim or you're a Christian, you believe in your religion, you don't need to go to swear by any deity. And for me, the oath of office actually doesn't mean that it binds you to go and do what you're saying. But for me, it means that you should know that you are going to be accountable to God at the end at the end of it. Also, it's a two-way thing. It's not just about saying you want to go there and do based on what you told him. But for me, I think that time to time, politicians should be made, maybe there should be certain period that they should be reminded Okay. Just like you, find that some people do marriage, they take their vows,
renewal of vows
and things like that. So maybe after some 6-7 months, you should be reminded that you took office to
and you said you're going to do this.
So maybe perchance you forgot. We are reminding you that this is what you swore by your Quran or your Bible to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Talking about renewing political vows, so to speak, and holding them accountable. The thing about a lot of people say that we're not getting what we should be getting in Nigeria as far as politicians are concerned is because we don't hold them accountable. Now, how and when should you hold our political officers accountable? This report from NTA Kaduna will throw more light on that. So we'll watch it together and then we'll talk.
Every citizen is entitled to good governance, such that meets the needs of the society at large. Good governance ensures there is proper accountability, transparency, and inclusiveness of all the led by the led. What comes to mind of many is how to know if there is proper accountability of the led in office.
We should be able to go out, reach out, find out bit by bit, because public office and officers are supposed to be accountable to the people. It is not your personal money. It is a government money. And you are not government. The people are government. Just because you are elected into an office does not make you a government. The people are the government, not you as a government. So as government, you are accountable to the people. So you should be able to be given date-to-date account of your activities, both financially, administratively, technically, and otherwise.
Sincerely speaking, accountability in Nigerian politics, in our leadership, I can say is zero. They don't want to account to anybody, and I don't know why.
Generally in Africa, our leaders usually are not accountable. That is why you have the Economic and Financial Crisis Commission chasing them after they have left office.
What then can the citizens do?
Citizens should be able to ask government questions. It is the responsibility of the citizens to know what is coming into the coffers of government. It is the responsibility of the citizens to know what the government is doing with what is coming to the coffers. It is the responsibility of government to provide for the citizens answers to every single question they ask, because the government is supposed to be accountable to the citizens, not the citizens being accountable to the government.
A public servant is supposed to provide good atmosphere for people to thrive. So we expect them to provide enabling environment, provide good healthcare, provide good schools so that people can be able to do things for themselves.
Citizens can do a lot. Advocacy, because the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria allows you to establish civil society organizations. So if you don't, whom are you to blame? Just like you collected each other and went and gave a block vote to your candidates. Because you go to campaign, you help politicians to campaign around. So why don't you also campaign for the establishment of civil society organizations, register them, and then on that platform, you can seek for all manner of rights that you deserve.
How can the citizens know the non-performing ones in office?
If I have campaign promises, and you have what we call manifesto, which is a document that should reflect what you want to do before you get in office. Hold that document and then begin to study what the man has said. I will build roads, I will build schools, I will create employment, and then just briefly see the roads are there. If they are there, fine. If they are not there, how much are they costing? Are they spending your money in the right manner?
If a government is performing, you will see it on the ground. You don't need to even tell anybody to say, what is the government doing?
To this end, it is the hope of every citizen that political office holders will be held accountable.
We continue to pray that our political terrain, our political process, and our electoral process will continue to develop and mature to the point where all the problems bedeviling it will be a thing of the past, and we truly can enjoy the dividends of democracy. We have come to the end of the show. Until we come your way next week, God Almighty continue to bless you, and God bless Nigeria. Goodbye.